Hi, I'm Nick Bolton, the founder of Animas Centre for Coaching. Now in this video I want to explore the Paradigmatic Principle in Transformative Coaching. This is one of the most powerful and far-reaching ideas in Transformative Coaching. Now this principle invites us to look not just at what a client thinks, but how they think. Not just at the stories they tell, but the underlying worldview that makes those stories make sense in the first place. Most of the time we live inside our paradigms without even noticing them, rather like the classic analogy of the fish not knowing what water is. Now, paradigm is essentially a deep frame through which we interpret our experiences. It's the assumptions, the beliefs, the mental models that shape what we consider true, possible, or appropriate. And because paradigms operate beneath conscious awareness, we don't tend to question them. We simply assume that the way we see the world is the world. The paradigmatic principle recognizes that much of human change is not about adjusting behavior or rethinking a problem. It's about examining the worldview that gives rise to that behavior, gives rise to that problem, to the feeling of being stuck in that paradigm. When a client says, I have to keep everyone happy, or I just can't slow down, or I should have known the answer, those statements aren't just thoughts, they're expressions of a deeper held paradigm, a worldview that has been shaped by family, culture, identity, work, environments, and countless experiences that have sedimented into a sense of how things are, a kind of a truth. Now, transformative coaching invites a client into a space where these paradigms become visible. Because once they're visible, they become open to change. This is the very heart of transformative work. We're not merely helping clients change within their existing worldview, we're inviting them to explore the worldview itself, to question its origins, its limits, and its consequences. And often this can lead to breakthroughs that are far more significant than any strategy or behavioral shift could ever achieve. For example, a client might think they're struggling with time management, but when we explore more deeply, we discover a paradigm of worthiness tied entirely to productivity. The issue isn't their calendar, it's the worldview that tells them they aren't allowed to rest. When that paradigm loosens, their relationship to life changes, their relationship to time changes. Of course, the paradigmatic principle is not about dismantling paradigms for the sake of it. Instead, it's about helping clients see the architecture of their meaning making, the scaffolding that shapes their choices, their relationships, their aspirations, and their fears. And because paradigms are formed through lived experience, we approach them with respect, with curiosity, and with compassion. These are not mistakes, they're adaptations to how they perceive the world. Now, the principle also requires a particular stance from the coach. Firstly, we work phenomenologically. In other words, we explore the client's worldview as they live it and experience it, not as an objective truth we can disprove. And we resist the temptation to offer a new paradigm in place of the old one. The point is not to replace one worldview with another one, especially not one that we assume to be more effective. Instead, we aim to help the client become the author of their own meaning, to recognize that they can choose how they interpret the world, rather than unconsciously inheriting those interpretations. When clients begin to see their paradigms clearly, something really remarkable happens. A mental space opens up, an emotional space opens up, a loosening, a sense of possibility that just wasn't there before. They start to recognize that many of the limitations they experience aren't external realities, but internal constructions. And in that recognition, they gain personal agency around their assumptions. And paradigmatic transformation doesn't have to look dramatic or explosive, by the way. Sometimes it's a very subtle internal shift, a reconfiguration of how somebody relates to themselves or to the world. And those shifts reverberate. They shape decisions, relationships, boundaries, aspirations. They ripple outward into life in ways that are genuinely profound. So when we talk about the paradigmatic principle in transformative coaching, we're talking about working at the level of the worldview, the deepest layer of meaning making. We're talking about helping clients become conscious participants in their own evolution. And we're talking about the kind of insight that doesn't just change actions, but changes the way people see themselves forever. I hope you found this video interesting, and I'll see you in the next one.